Hi, I'm Mina.
And I'm Yules.
Thanks for tuning in to Artificially Informed.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. We're here to cut through the noise and give you the knowledge you need on the biggest, most surprising stories shaping our world.
Yeah, think of it as your shortcut to really understanding what's going on without getting buried in headlines.
Our goal today is to connect the dots, give you those aha moments.
And there's a lot connecting this week. We're seeing these huge currents running together, the tech we build, our own biology, and the politics trying to manage it all.
We're calling it the triumvirate. First up, artificial intelligence. It's moving so fast, almost unsettlingly fast. We'll look at how it's trying to become our main computer interface.
Right, like an OS.
Yeah.
But also the financial bubbles it might be creating and some pretty serious ethical questions.
Then we're going to shift gears completely. We'll dive into natural science, some amazing body breakthroughs, like how venom from a desert lizard led to a multi-billion-dollar drug.
It's an incredible story. And we'll also touch on new ideas about our senses, maybe more than the 5 we always talk about.
And finally, the geopolitical stage. It's intense right now. Fragile ceasefires, military actions heating up in places like the Caribbean, even spying allegations within the EU.
Yeah, it's a packed agenda, high stakes all around. So let's jump right into that first segment, the AI and tech convergence.
Okay, so AI. It feels like it's not just improving things anymore. It's aiming for a total takeover of how we interact with computers. OpenAI's vision for ChatGPT. It's huge.
It really is. They're not just thinking of it as a chatbot. The idea is for it to become the main interface, the operating system you talk to.
Instead of clicking icons and opening apps.
Exactly. Forget the desktop, the folders. They're leveraging what they expect from the next big model, GPT-5, to handle everything. You just tell it what you need.
So give me an example,
Okay, so you could say, draft me a Python script to analyze the last 6 months of sales data, find the 3 worst regions, then write a persuasive email pitch for those specific regions.
And it does all that. The coding, the analysis, the writing.
That's the goal, all from one natural language prompt. It handles the complex tasks, the programming, the creative stuff, the data crunching. It's meant to be this central hub.
Sam Altman, OpenAI's CEO, he compared this to the iPhone launch, didn't he?
He did. He's not shy about the scale of ambition here. He sees it as that kind of fundamental shift, changing how billions of people use technology.
And the audience is there. You mentioned the user numbers.
Yeah, the sources are saying over 700 million active weekly users for the ChatGPT ecosystem as of this year, 2025. That's a massive ready-made base.
Wow. Okay. So OpenAI is pushing this big consumer-facing change. What about Google? They're not just sitting back, right?
No way. Google's counterpunching hard, especially in the business world. They've rolled out Google Gemini Enterprise.
And that's different how?
It's less about replacing your Windows or Mac OS, more about embedding AI deep inside companies, streamlining workflows, boosting productivity for big enterprise clients. It's AI as a business tool, integrated into the existing structure.
So a different battlefield. OpenAI for the main interface, Google for the corporate engine room.
Kinda, yeah. It's a fight for dominance on different fronts. But all this excitement, this promise of revolution, it's spilling over into the financial markets in a big way.
And not necessarily a good way. I'm hearing bubble warnings.
You are, and from serious players, the Bank of England, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, they're explicitly drawing parallels to the dot-com bubble back in 2000.
But people argue it's different now. These AI companies, especially the big ones like NVIDIA, Microsoft, they actually make money, right? Unlike lots of dot-coms.
That's true. The revenue's real. But the expectations built into the stock prices are astronomical. That's what the IMF and others are pointing to.
What do you mean by expectations?
Well, look at the price-to-earnings ratios, the PE ratios. For some of these key AI stocks, they're incredibly high. It's like the market is pricing in maybe 10 years of absolutely perfect, uninterrupted exponential growth.
Which is unlikely.
Historically, very unlikely. So the warning is that these valuations are based more on hype, on speculative sentiment, than on proven sustainable profits at this scale. It's trading on potential, massive potential, but still potential.
And you see this reflected in the overall market, like the S&P 500 index.
Absolutely. Big tech, largely fueled by AI optimism, think chips, software, cloud, has driven the S&P 500 up something like 17% so far this year. These few giants are basically carrying the market.
Even while other economic worries are bubbling up, like that government shutdown we'll get to later.
Exactly. That's the risk concentration. The Bank of England, the IMF, They're warning that if anything shakes that speculative confidence, maybe the AI profits don't roll in quite as fast as hoped, or a key supplier hits a snag, the sentiment could just evaporate.
And then?
Then you could see a really sharp, sudden market correction, a pullback, very much like what happened when the dot-com bubble burst. The market's become very dependent on just a handful of these AI leaders delivering perfectly.
Okay, so huge economic stakes. But the impact of AI isn't just financial. We're seeing some really troubling stuff on the ethical and, well, criminal side, too. That Los Angeles fire case.
Yeah, that one is deeply disturbing. It raises new questions about AI and intent. Investigators found an AI-generated image on a suspect's device. The suspect is a 29-year-old man linked to a deadly fire in Los Angeles, California.
And the image was?
An image depicting a burning city, reportedly created using a program similar to ChatGPT, one of these generative AI tools.
Well, the question is, did the AI cause the crime or just reflect a dark thought? How do you even untangle that legally?
That's the incredibly difficult new territory. Obviously, the AI didn't physically start the fire, but finding that image suggests the suspect might have been using the tool to visualize, maybe even plan the act. It provides this high-fidelity way to explore dark impulses.
Could it, like, reinforce the intent?
That's the concern. Did generating that image make the real thing seem more possible, more concrete in the suspect's mind? And it raises huge questions for the AI platforms themselves. What responsibility do they have if their tools are used to visualize or plan crimes? It's murky.
And just to be clear, this is separate from another big fire case in California, right? The Pacific Palisades one?
Yes, completely separate. In that case, an Uber driver, Jonathan Rinderknecht, was charged with arson. That seems like a more tragically traditional case of alleged human arson.
Mm-hmm.
But the LA case introduces this unnerving technological layer.
Beyond these specific crimes, there's the whole issue of governments using AI and related tech for surveillance and enforcement. We're hearing a lot about ICEC, U.S. immigration and customs enforcement.
Right. Under the Trump administration, there's been a significant ramp-up in using advanced surveillance tech for deportation crackdowns.
What kind of tech are we talking about?
It's quite an arsenal. Facial recognition systems, for instance, like Amazon's recognition software, used to scan databases and track people. Then there's phone spyware, automated license plate readers tracking vehicle movements.
And these Stingray devices, what are those again?
Stingrays, or IMSI catchers, are basically fake cell phone towers. Your phone connects to it thinking it's legit, and the device sucks up your phone's identifying info, your location data.
Without a warrant sometimes.
That's often the core of the controversy. The use of these tools, often without specific individual warrants, raises huge privacy red flags. Critics point to the potential for racial profiling, arguing these systems might be disproportionately used against minority and immigrant communities. It's a massive expansion of state surveillance power.
Eroding civil liberties in the process.
That's the argument, yeah. The technology makes tracking and locating people, even globally, much easier, blurring lines around privacy and due process.
And the ethical debates reach into really personal areas too, like what happens to someone's digital likeness after they die? Zelda Williams spoke out about this regarding her father, Robin Williams.
Yeah, it was quite powerful. She called for people to stop creating AI deepfakes of her father's voice and image. She described it as personally disturbing.
I can only imagine.
She basically highlighted this clash between, what the technology can do and the emotional weight, the human cost. Are these companies prioritizing profit or novelty over the feelings and legacy of the deceased and their families? Who owns a person's digital ghost?
That's a question we're going to be grappling with for a long, long time. Okay, before I move on from tech, maybe a couple of quick, more positive developments.
Sure. On the health tech front, Amazon Pharmacy is moving forward. They're launching prescription drug vending machines inside One Medical clinics, starting in Los Angeles, California, reportedly in December 2025.
So doctors visit, then grab your meds right there.
That's the idea. Instant access, much more convenient than needing a separate trip to the pharmacy.
Okay, that could be genuinely useful. And something from Meta.
Yeah, Meta's added Hindi and Portuguese language support to its AI translation feature for Instagram Reels. That's a big deal for accessibility, opening up content to hundreds of millions more users in places like India and Brazil, breaking down language barriers.
All right, so AI is reshaping everything from our computers to our ethics, even our grieving. Let's shift now completely to life sciences and the body. And this story starts with a lizard.
It does. Specifically, the Gila monster, found in the southwestern U.S. and Mexico.
Yeah.
Its venom is the unlikely origin of one of today's blockbuster drugs, Ozempic or semaglutide.
Okay, Ozempic, we hear about it constantly for weight loss and diabetes. How does a Gila monster fit in?
Years ago, researchers studying Gila monster venom isolated a compound called exendin-4. They discovered it was surprisingly similar to a human hormone called GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide 1.
And GLP-1 is important for.
It's released naturally by our gut when we eat. It helps regulate blood sugar by stimulating insulin, but crucially, it also signals fullness to the brain and slows down how quickly the stomach empties.
So the lizard venom compound mimics this human hormone.
Exactly. Semaglutide, the drug in Ozempic and Wegovy, is a synthetic version designed to mimic GLP-1's effects, but to last much longer in the body. It boosts insulin when needed, cuts down glucagon release from the liver.
And the big one for weight loss, it makes you feel full longer and tells your brain to stop eating.
Precisely. That combination of metabolic regulation and powerful satiety signals is what leads to significant weight loss for many people. It's a $21 billion drug based on 2023 sales figures. Just massive.
An incredible journey from desert venom to pharmacy shelf. But there's a catch, right? You mentioned funding.
Yeah, this is a critical point. The very early foundational research identifying exendin-4, figuring out what it did, wasn't funded by a big pharma company looking for a weight loss drug. It was largely backed by government grants, public money, basic science exploration.
And the concern now
Is that cuts to that kind of basic, curiosity-driven government research funding could prevent the next Ozempic. These breakthroughs often take decades and start in unexpected places. If we only fund research with obvious, immediate commercial potential, we might miss out on these fundamental discoveries.
That's a really important point. Okay, beyond weight management, are there other drug developments tackling major chronic diseases?
Yes, there's promising work on hypertension, high blood pressure. A drug called baxdrostat recently showed good results in trials.
What's special about it?
It not only helped lower blood pressure in patients where other treatments weren't working well, but it also seemed to protect their kidneys from damage, which is a common and serious complication of long-term high blood pressure.
So treating the cause and protecting against the consequences, that's a step forward. And what about things we can, eat or drink? Green tea.
Still looking good. Recent research, this time in obese mice, confirmed that green tea helps enhance metabolism and specifically boosts fat burning.
Did it affect healthy mice?
Interestingly, no. It didn't seem to have adverse effects on the lean mice, suggesting it might have a targeted effect on those with metabolic issues. It reinforces the idea of green tea as a helpful functional food for metabolic health.
Okay, from bodily chemistry to how we perceive the world. The brain. We always learn the five senses, but science might be updating that.
There's new thinking, yeah.
Yeah.
Researchers actually at Skulltech developed a mathematical model looking at how memory works. Their model suggests the brain might operate most efficiently using 7 sensory dimensions, not just 5.
7. What are the extra 2?
They're including inputs like proprioception, that's your sense of your body's position and movement in space, how you can touch your nose with your eyes closed, and thermoception, the sense of temperature, heat, and cold.
Huh. And adding those makes the model work better.
Apparently, yes. It creates a richer framework for how we encode experiences. Think about how a memory tied to a specific place or a feeling of warmth or cold can be much stronger. This might help explain why.
And this has implications for artificial intelligence.
Potentially, yes. If our brains really use 7 dimensions to process reality, maybe future AI could be designed to learn and perceive in a similar, more complex way. It could lead to smarter, more nuanced AI.
Fascinating. Let's go deeper into the brain itself. Brain waves. Gamma and theta waves, what are they telling us about consciousness?
Okay, so brain waves, or oscillations, are rhythmic electrical patterns. Gamma waves are the fastest ones we typically measure, buzzing along at 30 hertz or more.
And they're linked to
Peak mental states. High-level information processing, focus, conscious awareness, moments of insight. Think of them as the brain working at full throttle, binding together information from different areas.
Okay, that's gamma. What about theta waves?
Theta waves are slower, around 4 to 8 hertz. They're more associated with relaxed states, deep meditation, creativity, and also memory formation and recall. You see them a lot when someone is drowsy or in that zone between waking and sleeping.
Why is mapping these waves so important for medicine?
It's crucial for understanding and potentially treating disorders of consciousness. Think about patients in comas or vegetative states. Analyzing their brainwave patterns can give doctors clues about hidden awareness or cognitive function, even if the person can't respond physically.
So it could help with diagnosis and maybe even prognosis.
Exactly. Understanding which brain rhythms are present or absent could guide treatment strategies and help manage these incredibly difficult conditions. We're really just starting to decode the electrical language of consciousness.
From the inner universe of the brain to outer space. Segment 3, the new space race and planetary dynamics. Things are moving fast out there, too.
And incredibly fast. Both governments and private companies are hitting major milestones. Blue Origin, Jeff Bezos' company, just had a big one.
What was that?
They successfully rolled out the first stage of their massive New Glenn rocket for testing. This is a huge vehicle, a heavy lifter.
And it's important because
It's slated to launch key missions for NASA, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. Specifically, at least 2 probes headed for Mars exploration. So this test is a critical step, showing a major commercial player is ready to support big government space goals.
Speaking of Mars, sending people there is still the long-term dream. What are we learning about the people needed for such a trip?
Well, a new study is pushing back against the idea of just sending type A alpha personalities. It argues for more diversity in personality types.
Why is that?
On a mission lasting potentially years, in extreme isolation and stress, psychological compatibility is paramount. A mix of personalities, communication styles, ways of handling conflict, it likely leads to a more resilient, cooperative, and ultimately successful crew. It's not just about technical skills.
Makes sense. Meanwhile, closer to Earth, the satellite internet race is really heating up. SpaceX launching satellites for Amazon.
Yeah, that was a notable one. SpaceX launched a batch of 24 satellites for Amazon's Project Kuiper constellation. It really highlights the fierce competition to build out these massive networks of low Earth orbit satellites.
All aiming to provide global broadband internet coverage.
That's the goal. Connecting remote areas, offering alternative services. It's a huge potential market, hence the race to deploy thousands of these things.
And the government is trying to keep up with this explosion of activity, the FCC.
Right, the U.S. Federal Communications Commission. They've launched what they're calling a Space Month initiative. The aim is basically to speed up the paperwork, streamline the regulations for getting satellites and other space activities approved.
Trying to cut the red tape so innovation isn't slowed down?
Exactly. Trying to make sure the U.S. regulatory environment keeps pace with the speed of the commercial space industry.
On a slightly lighter note, we saw a space selfie.
We did. An Australian nanosatellite snapped a picture of itself in orbit before starting its main job, tracking cosmic gamma ray bursts. These are incredibly powerful explosions out in the universe, often associated with things like black hole formation. So, a quick selfie, then back to some serious astrophysics.
And culture travels to space, too. The Chinese crew on the Tiangong space station celebrated a festival.
Yes, they celebrated the Mid-Autumn Festival up there, shared pictures enjoying a special meal, spicy lamb, traditional mooncakes. It's a nice reminder that human culture travels with us even off-planet.
Okay, let's look at some specific discoveries about the cosmos. First, Mars. Turns out its weather might be rougher than we thought.
Yeah, new research confirms that Martian dust devils are not only common but can be incredibly powerful. We're talking speeds up to 160 kilometers per hour, which is about 99 miles per hour. Hurricane force winds.
Wow, that's significant for future missions.
Hugely significant. These things move a lot of dust around, affecting the climate, sure. But imagine what a 160 kPa vortex of dust and grit could do to a rover, a habitat, or astronauts on a spacewalk. Scouring solar panels, damaging equipment. It's a major environmental hazard they'll need to engineer for.
And another hazard. We had a very close call with an asteroid recently, asteroid 2025 TF.
An incredibly close call. This asteroid, about the size of a car, flew just 428 kilometers, that's about 265 miles above Antarctica, on October 1st.
How close is that in space terms?
That's well inside the orbit of many satellites. Extremely close. But here's the really unsettling part.
What's that?
We didn't even know it was coming. It was only detected 6 hours after it had already zipped past Earth.
Oh, that's not good.
Not good at all. It's a stark reminder that our ability to detect these near-Earth objects, especially the smaller, faster ones, still has major blind spots. A car-sized one would probably burn up in the atmosphere, but if something slightly larger came at us undetected, the lack of warning time is the real worry.
So we're pushing out in space commercially, but still struggling to keep an eye on our own cosmic neighborhood.
That tension is definitely there. And you see it reflected in where the money's going, too. At the recent TechCrunch Disrupt 2025 event, big topics for investors were things like space defense, developing artificial gravity for long missions, and of course, more satellite connectivity.
Space is definitely big business now.
Absolutely. It's moved way beyond just government exploration. It's a major frontier for economic growth, venture capital, And yes, defense interests too.
Okay, let's bring it back down to earth for our next segment: geopolitics, diplomacy, conflict. Segment 4, starting in the Middle East.
Right. A potentially significant development regarding Gaza. Reports indicate Israel and Hamas have agreed on the first phase of a peace plan. This was brokered by the U.S.
What does this first phase involve?
The initial steps are aimed at a ceasefire, stopping the hostilities, and facilitating the release of hostages held by Hamas and Palestinian prisoners held by Israel. It's a starting point, obviously very fragile.
And this news immediately fueled talk about President Trump and the Nobel Peace Prize.
It did. Senator Marco Rubio apparently sent what was described as an urgent note to President Trump, framing this Gaza deal as another example supporting Trump's claim of having resolved, I think the number was 8, global conflicts.
That claim itself is controversial, isn't it?
Highly controversial. Peace researchers and diplomats have pushed back hard. Nina Greger from the Peace Research Institute Oslo, for example, criticized Trump's reliance on pressure tactics, arguing they don't align with the spirit of the prize. There are also reports of intense lobbying directed at the Nobel Committee itself.
Meanwhile, the EU is stepping up.
Yes, the European Union stated it's ready to discuss how it can contribute to the Gaza peace process, likely meaning financial aid and logistical support if the ceasefire holds and progresses.
Okay, shifting focus now to the Caribbean. The U.S. military has been active there.
Yes, the Trump administration authorized strikes against boats in the Caribbean Sea, boats allegedly linked to Venezuela.
And the justification.
The stated rationale is usually combating narco-terrorism. However, this has drawn sharp criticism from activists and some policy experts.
Why?
They argue the legal basis is shaky, the evidence often isn't public, and that these strikes risk escalating tensions dramatically, potentially leading to a wider conflict. There have been reports of fatalities, over 20 since September, associated with these operations.
And it got more complicated recently. Involvement of another country's citizens.
Yes. The president of Colombia confirmed that one of the boats hit by U.S. forces was carrying Colombian nationals. That adds a significant layer of diplomatic tension and raises serious humanitarian questions about the targeting intelligence and rules of engagement.
Elsewhere, we're seeing alliances solidify. Russia and North Korea.
Very much so. Former Russian President Dmitry Medvedev made a high-profile visit to Pyongyang, North Korea, for the 80th anniversary of their ruling Workers' Party.
More than just a party visit, though.
Oh, absolutely. It was about reaffirming their deepening ties, political, economic, and crucially, military cooperation. This follows their recent signing of a comprehensive strategic partnership treaty.
And that treaty includes
a mutual defense clause. That's the key part. It basically says if one country is attacked, the other is obligated to provide military assistance. It significantly raises the stakes in Northeast Asia and gives North Korea a powerful security guarantee from Russia.
Okay, let's look at East-West tensions more broadly, particularly around technology and economic tools. The U.S. blacklisted some Chinese companies.
That's right. The U.S. Department of Commerce added 12 China-based firms to its trade blacklist.
For doing what?
For allegedly supplying drone components, specifically parts originating from the U.S., to militant groups like Hamas and the Houthis in Yemen. This reportedly came after American parts were found in drones used by Hamas.
So, using trade restrictions as a weapon in this tech rivalry.
Exactly. It's economic warfare aimed at controlling technology flow, and it definitely ramps up the tension between Washington and Beijing, especially right before President Trump and China's Xi Jinping are expected to meet at the AIPAC summit. That's the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Forum.
Shows how tangled global supply chains are. A small part can have huge geopolitical weight. Separately, a rather stunning admission from Russia's President Putin.
Yes, quite rare. Putin acknowledged that Russian air defenses were, in fact, responsible for shooting down an Azerbaijani Airlines passenger flight back in December 2024. All 38 people on board were killed.
What was the explanation?
He blamed it on confusion caused by an incursion of Ukrainian drones into the area at the same time, combined with technical problems in their air defense system. He promised an investigation and compensation, but it's a stark admission of a catastrophic error in a tense airspace.
And that tension is pushing NATO, the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, towards a more aggressive posture.
It seems so. There's talk within NATO about adopting a more forceful response to Russian military aircraft operating near NATO borders.
What does forceful mean in this context?
It could mean easing the rules of engagement for NATO pilots, allowing them to react more assertively. And, significantly, considering arming some of their surveillance drones. This comes after countries like Estonia and Poland have repeatedly accused Russia of violating their airspace.
That sounds like a significant escalation risk, moving from purely watching to potentially engaging.
It's a definite shift in tone and potentially posture, yeah. It increases the chances, however small, of a direct clash between NATO and Russian forces.
Meanwhile, Ukraine is facing a desperate situation because of the ongoing conflict, specifically with energy.
A critical situation. Reports indicate Russian missile strikes have knocked out something like 60% of Ukraine's natural gas production capacity.
Just as winter approaches.
Exactly. Kyiv has urgently appealed to its allies, the G7 nations, Group of Seven, for about $2 billion in emergency aid. They needed to buy gas on the international market to avoid a potentially catastrophic energy crisis this winter. It's a major humanitarian and strategic concern.
And finally, turning inward within the European Union, a really shocking allegation involving Hungary.
This one could have major repercussions. There are reports, seemingly credible, alleging that Hungary used secret agents operating with diplomatic cover in Brussels, Belgium, to spy on EU institutions themselves.
Spying on your own allies, inside the institutions of the union you belong to.
Precisely. That's what makes it so explosive. It's not standard intelligence gathering on external threats. It's an accusation of internal espionage, of a member state allegedly running covert operations against the very heart of the EU. The European Commission has launched an investigation.
What does this say about trust within the EU, especially regarding Hungary under Viktor Orban?
It suggests a profound breakdown of trust. If true, it's the kind of action you'd expect from an adversary, not a partner nation. It raises fundamental questions about security, shared values, and what leverage the EU even has when a member state is accused of such deep subversion.
Wow. Okay, that's a lot of global friction. Let's bring it home for our final segment. Domestic politics, justice, accountability, starting back in the U.S. with the government shutdown.
Still ongoing, entering its second week now. The main sticking point remains the deadlock in the Senate, where Democrats have blocked multiple attempts to pass funding bills. This marks, I think, the sixth failed attempt.
What is the atmosphere like on Capitol Hill?
Pretty toxic, by all accounts. Lots of finger-pointing, frayed nerves. We've seen reports of direct confrontations between lawmakers, like Democratic leader Hakeem Jeffries telling Republican Mike Lawler to keep your mouth shut. It's gridlock mixed with open hostility.
And amidst this chaos, there's talk of the president considering the Insurrection Act.
Yes, reports suggest the Trump administration is seriously debating whether to invoke the Insurrection Act.
Remind us what that allows.
It's a controversial law that allows the president to deploy federal troops domestically to quell civil unrest, even overriding state governors. The discussion seems focused on potentially using troops in Democrat-led cities experiencing protests or disorder.
That would be a massive step, critics would call it.
An extreme overreach of federal power, a militarization of domestic issues. Supporters would argue it's necessary if local authorities can't maintain order. Chicago has been mentioned as a potential focus for such action.
Political tensions were also high in a Senate hearing this week. Attorney General Pam Bondi versus Senator Adam Schiff.
Oh yeah, that was quite the showdown. At a Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, AG Bondi demanded Schiff apologize for his role in the Trump impeachment years ago.
And Schiff's response?
He fired back, accusing Bondi of using the Department of Justice for political purposes, essentially doing the White House's bidding, and claiming the hearing itself was political revenge. It got pretty personal, devolving into accusations about past dealings, mortgage fraud, even Jeffrey Epstein connections.
A snapshot of the current polarization, really.
Absolutely. Oversight turned into partisan combat.
On a much darker note, there were leaks related to the late conservative activist Charlie Kirk.
Yes, text messages leaked from shortly before his assassination. They revealed his frustration over losing a major donor, someone giving $2 million a year.
Why did the donor pull out?
Reportedly, it was due to Kirk's stance on Israel, specifically his refusal to disinvite commentator Tucker Carlson from an event, and his desire to be able to criticize Israeli policies sometimes without losing funding from staunchly pro-Israel donors.
It gives a glimpse into the financial pressures behind political speech.
A very stark glimpse, yeah, showing how money can influence or try to control the acceptable range of debate, even within ideological movements.
Quick hop over to the UK, a proposal about housing costs.
Yes. Kemi Badenoch, a prominent figure in the Conservative Party, proposed scrapping stamp duty that's a tax paid when you buy property on main residences.
The idea being?
To make buying a home cheaper, stimulate the housing market, especially for families struggling with the cost of living and a sluggish economy. It's a big, potentially popular, but also expensive idea.
Across the channel in France, political instability continues.
It does. President Emmanuel Macron is looking for his sixth prime minister since taking office, after Sébastien Lecornu resigned. It highlights an ongoing political crisis, making it hard for Macron to govern effectively, especially with tough budget decisions looming.
Okay, final topic area. Justice, race, and accountability. Starting with the Madeleine McCann case. Heartbreaking developments there.
Truly awful. Madeleine's sister, Amelia McCann, testified about the impact of an alleged stalker. She described the communications as deeply intrusive and unsettling, basically exploiting the family's existing pain and trauma. The parents, Kate and Jerry McCann, are also fighting against years of harassment.
And in the UK, renewed calls for justice in the Stephen Lawrence murder case.
Yes. Stephen's mother, Baroness Lawrence, is demanding a new investigation. This comes after one of the convicted killers, David Norris, reportedly admitted his involvement in the racist attack from prison.
Why is that admission significant now?
Because it fuels long-held suspicions about major police failures in the original investigation back in 1993. How could Norris and others evade justice for so long? Baroness Lawrence points to systemic issues of racism and incompetence within the police force at the time.
Is there any sign the police are taking current accountability more seriously?
There are some signals. 10 officers from London's Metropolitan Police are facing fast-track misconduct hearings. This stems from evidence uncovered by the police watchdog, the IOPC, following a BBC Panorama investigation into alleged professional breaches.
Fast-tracked hearings suggesting more urgency.
That seems to be the intention, yes. An attempt to address misconduct more swiftly and perhaps start rebuilding public trust, which has been badly damaged by various scandals.
And finally, a case in the U.S. involving racial profiling claims.
Yes. A judge threw out a summons issued against O'Keefe, a writer for the show The Bear. He was issued the summons on a train after a white passenger complained about how he was sitting. O'Keefe, who is black, argued he was singled out due to racial bias.
And the judge agreed.
The judge dismissed the summons, highlighting the need to scrutinize situations where racial profiling is alleged, especially when the complaint itself seems minor or subjective. It comes at a time when statistics, actually from England and Wales, show a rise in reported race and religious hate crimes for the first time in 3 years.
So the issue remains very current and pressing.
Absolutely, both in terms of individual incidents and the need for systemic accountability in law enforcement and society generally.
Okay. We've covered a huge amount of ground. Let's try to synthesize this. What are the big takeaways from this week's triumvirate?
I think 3 things really stand out. First, just the sheer speed and reach of technology, particularly AI. It's aiming to be our OS, it's blurring lines in crime, and it's creating potentially unstable financial bubbles. Our ability to govern it is lagging way behind.
Second, the power and surprise of natural science. That Gila monster story leading to Ozempic, the potential for 7 senses. These breakthroughs are amazing, but they depend on that foundational, often publicly funded, basic research, which seems increasingly at risk.
And third, the level of geopolitical tension and mistrust is just alarming. Fragile peace deals, military escalations, Russia and North Korea's defense pact, and even alleged spying within the EU, trust seems to be eroding everywhere on the global stage.
And the connection weaving through all of this, it feels like a mismatch, doesn't it, between our technological sophistication and our, well, human systems.
Exactly. We're building these incredibly complex AI tools, like ChatGPT, potentially running our digital lives, capable of processing insane amounts of information.
Yet, at the same time, look at the basics. We have political gridlock shutting down governments, allies allegedly spying on each other, ongoing struggles for basic accountability and fairness in policing.
Our political and ethical framework seems stuck dealing with analog-era problems, while technology is leaping generations ahead.
So, the final thought to leave everyone with is maybe this. How do we manage these incredibly powerful new tools, AI, advanced surveillance, genetic engineering on the horizon, responsibly and ethically?
When our fundamental systems for cooperation, trust, governance, and even just basic political functionality seem to be creaking under the strain of today's problems.
That gap between what we can build and how we manage ourselves feels like the central challenge right now.
It really does. Something to keep thinking about. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
Keep digging, keep questioning. We'll see you next time.
You're enjoying Artificially Informed.
Hit subscribe and share it with a friend.
From the left, the right, and straight from the algorithm.
Thank you.
That's it for today's Artificially Informed.
Nope. Thanks for spending your time with us.
Yeah.
Stay sharp, stay curious. See you next time.